Well, hello and welcome to day one of Azure Spring Cleaning 2023. Thank you for checking out my talk, Azure Static Web Apps, the new EV. First off, I want to thank Joe and Thomas for putting together this amazing annual event. I really appreciate the opportunity to contribute. I've been a big fan in watching this event for the last 2 years, and I've learned so much. So let me introduce myself. My name is Richard Lewis. I'm a DevOps consulting manager at a company called 3Cloud Solutions. I live in Chicago, Illinois, and I've been an Azure user since 2011. So I've seen the bad parts of it, and I've seen it get a lot better over the years. I'm a fan of the Chicago White Sox, which is a Major League Baseball team here in the US, and I spent over 20 years in operations and software development. So, there are two types of vehicles out there. We have a combustible engine one, and then we also have the electric motor vehicle, right? So, combustible engine, you have to think about gasoline, possibly diesel. On an electric vehicle, you just think about electricity. You plug in it in, charges it up, and you're off and running. The difference is on your combustible engine, you got to worry about the maintenance part of it. So you got to worry about oil changes and brakes and all those other kind of services. On the electrical vehicles, you get a lot longer run. You don't even have to worry about oil changes to start out with. So when I think about my Azure services, I want something where I don't have to really, think about putting much time into the management of the service or doing other things around the service. Instead, I just want something where I can be quick, easy, deploy out the door, and I'm up and running. That takes me to hosting web apps. This is an easy diagram to show, so I'm going to explain to you on this type of diagram here. So, with an Azure Web Apps right now, let's say if I want to put my website up and running, I got to worry about having an Azure service plan, some services up and running on there. I have to worry about content distribution networks I set up, and I have to worry about App Insight so I can know if there's errors occurring from my app and my service, and got to worry about storage accounts, and then setting up a blob or container, a database backend, and I even got to build a pipeline to do all these things. Just to get my little app up and running, I got to worry about 7 services and 1 pipeline. That's a lot of time right there just to get something up and running. But with Azure Static Web Apps, I got to worry about 2 things now. I got to worry about the Azure Static Web App, and I got to worry about my pipeline. 1 service, 1 pipeline. Easy peasy. Let's dive in deeper here. Okay, so let's take a closer look. I'm going to hop over to my browser here, and the reason why I don't have to worry about all those services anymore is because the Azure Static Web App service takes all those things into account as features of the way that the service is designed. And those are all deployed for me and set up and configured. I shouldn't say deployed for me. They're already available for me, right? So hosting of all the files that I would need to store before on my storage account, that's there. All of the integrations I got to worry about doing global distribution, SSL certificates, or worrying about configuration of my routing backend. That's all taken care of for me now. Now, before, if you noticed in my diagram, let me go back 1 slide. You notice that I have 2 app services I'm deploying there. And I don't have to do that anymore because that is now handled here for me. So I have staging zones and available for me now. Automatically out the door, so I could do blue-green deployments if I wanted to. All this tied together by integration with GitHub, Azure DevOps. Basically, it kind of works with any Git repo if you configure it properly. But out the door, GitHub and Azure DevOps, if I wanted to, I can automatically generate a pipeline for myself. So I'm going to show you what the service actually looks like up close. I do get a little fancy URL if I want to go take a look at my application. Here's where my pipeline is set up for my workflow integration. It supports App Insights, and this particular application here, this is my website, the one you're visiting right now, gogorichie.com. And Since that's not actually running as an application directly, it's actually a static web app. It doesn't use the App Insights integration here, but it's available to me if I wanted to set up some kind of service, like a Web 3.0 service or something like that, React app or something like that. Custom domain names, those are all set up and configured for me. APIs, as I mentioned, the environment, I can see what different things look like. Private endpoints if I want to start bringing this internally. And I should probably mention the plans and hosting stuff. You can go do your research in this part, but it's pretty straightforward. There's two versions. There's free and then there's standard. Free, standard, $9 a month. Big difference here. It's down to the app size and hosting. Yeah, you get more environments, more deployment slots. You can do some other things with it too. Go read through the documentation on that, but they're all there for you. So let's take a quick look and see how everything's laid out here. So let's look at that pipeline first. And if you notice, this pipeline here, this is a automatically generated pipeline. So when I connect up my repo to Azure Static Web Apps, it actually creates this pipeline for me. It will drop it right into a workflow folder, and it will look like this. So I could add in all my steps, but I'm a little weird. I like to have my different activities broken out separate. So all my different GitHub actions are broken out separately here, but I could merge them all into one. I can make my own. But this one here, though, this is automatically generated. I kind of left it alone. So it'll take care of for everything it needs to do. So it'll do an upload of the activities. It will create for me my demo environment or sandbox. It does everything. So once I do a PR, like I just did here, it'll run through and it will produce this demo site for me. Now, if this was just an application or some kind of app service or something like that, it would essentially do the same thing. You could go through and have your stakeholders review that, approve it, and you could then set up for your deployment to production. That's all done from what's inside the pipeline. Close the PR, merge it when you're ready. Now, you can see your your run histories and activities just like everything else. You can see if it ran into any errors, build, deploy, close the PR, those kind of tasks, those are all there. If I need to get from my static web app straight over to my GitHub repo, it's all built into it. So these are deeply integrated. And I forgot to mention, it is a global service. So that whole content distribution part, you really don't have to worry about that because that's globally distributed for you. So I can't stress that enough, how important that is and how easy and cool that is. I did take it for a test run to see what's the threshold of how many calls can it handle denial of service attack or something like that. And it does a really good job of doing that. I used some automated QA testing tools against it and just had a couple hundred machines running against it continuously to call the website and call different services, and it was able to sustain it. I was able to chart it out and see how long it was able to stay up and down. Stay up and keep from going down. And that's where the hosting plan came back into play again, so I could know the throughput of everything. All right, so hopping back over to my slides here. So we talked about why static web apps. We talked about the difference in them. We talked about, hey, now you don't have to worry about your pipelines or services. I just gave you a nice little demo. And I want to thank you again for your time. I'm Richard Lewis. If you want to get a hold of me, you can get me on Twitter. I'm at GoGoRichie, basically at GoGoRichie everywhere. So hit me up on the website, gogorichie.com. There's a bunch of links there to find me on social media platforms. You can send me an email if you want to, if you're old school like that. Richard at gogorichie.com. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.